The From the Bench Sports Podcast, bringing you analysis, opinion, and insight into the world of sports. With your host and founder of AccessMediaGlobal.com, Mark Janisch. The From the Bench Sports Podcast, bringing you analysis, opinion, and insight into the world of sports. With your host and founder of AccessMediaGlobal.com, Mark Janisch.
Welcome, everybody. This is Mark Janisch. I'm here giving you some insight, opinion, and analysis on the From the Bench Sports Podcast. Welcome, everybody listening on Spreaker, Libsyn, Stitcher Radio, and all the other podcast platforms that are now associated with Spreaker. I'll be detailing those for some of you as they come in. Deezer is one of them, and also Podcast Chaser is also another one of those. It'll be a little bit, probably about a week, maybe more, to get clearance to be on these podcast platforms, but wanted to let you know we've extended the reach via Spreaker. I also have a YouTube channel, Mark Janisch, M-A-R-K, J-A-N-I-S-C-H. And then there's Mark at Access Media via Twitter. So you can get a hold of me there, but you are also welcome to leave comments constructively, please, at the website, accessmediaglobal.com. Welcome to everybody. I'm going to just detail for you that Donovan Mitchell, the Utah Jazz, and the Denver Nuggets met in Game 1 of the Western Conference seeding games, playoff games, actually. And despite Donovan Mitchell scoring 57 points, which is the third highest in playoff history, Michael Jordan scored 53 points in 1986, and Elgin Baylor, number 22 for the Lakers out of Seattle University, scored 61 points in 1961. Donovan Mitchell's team fell short just a little bit, 135 to 125. Jamal Murray did a lot of damage for Denver with 36 points when he got going. It was about all she wrote. And, of course, Denver, an up-and-coming young team, won 135 to 125 in today's early games. The second game of the day from Orlando was the defending champion Toronto Raptors. 7 men were in double figures, led by Fred VanVleet with 30 points, leading the defending champions to a Game 1 victory over the Brooklyn Nets. The game Brooklyn Nets with Caris LeVert and Luana Cabarrot. You want to keep an eye on this guy. This guy can play. He's no scrub, so to speak, but want to let you know that the New Jersey Nets lost 134 to 110 in one of the highest scoring playoff game win in Toronto playoff history. So congratulations to defending champion Toronto and head coach Nick Nurse. Wanted to let you know that we are now on Spreaker. We are now on some podcast platforms in addition to that, which I'll detail for you as they come in. And want to invite you to continue to go to AccessMediaGlobal.com. We'll see what we can do about posting the highlights to these games. Right now, Philadelphia and the Boston Celtics are playing in the Eastern Conference. It is the 21st time that they have met in the playoffs, and the Celtics, of course, hold the edge 13-7 going into this matchup. Unfortunately, the 76ers without Ben Simmons are relying on Joel Embiid and hopefully some solid outside shooting from the likes of Tobias Harris and others, but that's going on right now. We'll have a update on that here later in the evening. We're going to go ahead and put this podcast up later tonight. Post Clippers Mavericks, number 2 versus number 7. Kristaps Porzingis and not Nikola Jokic, but Luka Doncic averaging 25 each. They have one of the highest scoring offenses, if not the highest scoring offense in the NBA, averaging 115.9 points a game. They are very efficient under Rick Carlisle. The Clippers are going to have their hands full. Hopefully they'll be able to hit from the outside, maybe get on top of the Dallas Mavericks, and then we'll see what happens with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Lou Williams, and crew. It does appear that Montrezl Harrell has cleared quarantine. That's not to say he may or may not play tonight. I don't believe so. But at the same time, it's good to see that he cleared quarantine. We would expect him back, hopefully, for a game 2 against Dallas. Number 2 versus number 7. So we're going to have more information on that later this evening. This podcast will be up later this evening, West Coast time, probably, I would say, after 8:30, 9 o'clock Pacific time. Whatever time zone you're listening in on, you can listen on your tablet. You can go to your Android phone. You can go to your iPhone, and you'll be able to go to accessmediaglobal.com. This podcast will be there along with all the other platforms that we're on right now. I want to thank everybody for helping. Those of you that enjoy the podcast, enjoy the analysis, we're going to continue to be here as God gives us the strength and the ability to do so. I want to thank you for your time today. We're going to continue with some analysis of the Philadelphia and Boston game and the number 2 versus number 7 matchup, of course, the Clippers and the Mavericks. The Los Angeles Clippers did defeat the Dallas Mavericks in Game 1 of their Western Conference Best of 7 series, led by Kawhi Leonard with 29 points, Paul George with 27 points, and it was a back-and-forth game, and the biggest issue for, among other things, the Clippers was just some transition defense wasn't being played well. Also, Luka Doncic, the Slovenian 21-year-old, definitely did play well. He had 42 points. However, Kristaps Porzingis got ejected, and when you see this tape, you're not going to necessarily say it was for a valid reason. There's not much there, I don't think. But he was taken out at the 9-10 mark of the third quarter. This was a back-and-forth game. The Clippers were up by 12, down by 16 in various portions of the game. It just didn't seem like the Clippers were in sync. Montrezl Harrell did actually play. However, he was not in sync. Hasn't played basketball for a month. Happy to see Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play well and complement each other as they have all season. But it's going to be a little bit before the Clippers are clicking on all cylinders. But wanted to just close this evening out saying thank you for listening to the From the Bench podcast. Once again, we are now on Spreaker and other podcast formats as they come in and as I am approved with this podcast, I will let you know. But we have expanded the reach. And until next time, I'm Mark Janish, wishing you a very pleasant good evening. And this is the August 17th edition of the From the Bench podcast. We'll be back tomorrow analyzing games, looking at all 4 playoff games, and we'll come back with some analysis. I will not be here on Wednesday, not available on Wednesday of this week, so you'll miss a day, but maybe we'll be back on Thursday of this week with more basketball analysis. Until next time, I'm Mark Janish, wishing you the very best and have a very pleasant evening. Thank you for listening to the From the Bench podcast. And as we go out, the announcer will tell you how you can support this podcast and the work of Access Media Global. Until next time, I'm Mark Janish, wishing you a very pleasant good evening.
Thank you for listening to the From the Bench Sports Podcast. You can listen to this and any other podcast episode on Libsyn, Stitcher Radio, and Spotify. If you'd like to support the From the Bench podcast, you may go to the AccessMediaGlobal.com website and click on the Donate tab.